When you put money into a bank account, it's not your money anymore.
That's crazy.
Right? It's an IOU. They're supposed to give it back to you. But we've seen in very kind of outlier events, like in Cyprus in 2013, I think it was, where they basically come in and the government says, you know what? If you have $100 in the bank, we're taking $10, 10% tax across the board. Well, how can they take my money? Because it's not your money, right? And so you end up not understanding some of that. And so this idea of sovereignty, the ability to hold your assets yourself, right? You talked about you don't actually have money buried in the backyard, right? That would make you a sovereign individual. It also puts you at a lot of security risk, right? Somebody could come here and dig it up and harm you, et cetera. With Bitcoin, what it allows for is this sovereignty. You can actually hold on to it. Nobody else is holding it for you. You get to custody the asset. And so in the developed world, we don't think a lot about this, right? We just, I put money in the bank, I go to the ATM, I can take it out, I can swipe a card, no problem. In the developing world, this is a huge problem, right? If all of a sudden I need to get up and I need to flee Venezuela, for example, well, I have to get on a train, a plane, a boat, or walk. And at every single one of the ports, airports, train stations, or border crossings, what are they doing? They're confiscating people's wealth. And so there's, report after report after report over the last few years where somebody went to the airport and they had physical gold in their suitcase and the government or the military took it from them. Well, you don't have sovereignty over the asset because you don't have the security of it. And so Bitcoin having this cryptographic kind of security to it ends up being really, really important on a global basis. Maybe not so much in the United States today, but globally really important. And the last thing is there's this censorship resistance with the payment network. And so one of the things that, again, in the developed world, we don't think a lot about is if I want to send you money, I basically have too many options, right? I can hand you physical cash. I can Venmo you. One time I asked my youngest brother how he sends money to his friends. He said Uber. I said, how do you send money on Uber? And he goes, well, I split rides with them at the end of the ride, right? So there's all these ways that we don't think that we send value back and forth to each other in the developed world. Well, what happens if the government said you can't send Tom money? And sometimes they do that where they'll say, Tom's a criminal. You're not allowed to do financial transactions with him. I think generally as a society, we say there's got to be some rule of law. We agree bad people shouldn't be able to launder money or, commit crimes with money, et cetera. But what happens if it goes from Tom's a criminal to Tom didn't work out today and Tom's been a bad boy in our society. And so now all of a sudden, Pomp, you can't send Tom any money. Well, what do we do then? Because all of the technology that we use would be exposed to that threat. And so this idea of censorship resistance, while I don't think most people around the world today are worried about their government saying Tom can't receive money because he didn't work out today, what we are worried about is, well, what happens when all of a sudden a dictatorship says to their citizens, you're not going to be able to get your capital out, right?
I'm actually a little more worried maybe than you are. So I am not a very controversial person by nature, but watching some of the controversial people get shut down where like Stripe is like, we won't even process your payment account. There are ways to really fuck with people. Now, here in America, it gets a little scary.
I usually don't go too far down this rabbit hole only because you end up in this weird world where everyone becomes a conspiracy theorist real quick. But, in the last 18 months, a lot of the conspiracy theorists were just early, right? They ended up being right about a lot of things. And it's unfortunate. It's not always that situation, but I do think that we are headed towards a world where we're understanding the more power that you give to governments, the more that they encroach on personal freedoms, individual liberties, etc.
Hey, you, did you like this video? Great. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, and see you next time.